Hey guys, welcome back to the Falaya Focus studio, where today we're talking to John Roberts Jr. of Attracct Accounting Services and also the Red Stick Real Estate Investing group that meets up here. So he's got a lot of great ideas and things that he's doing in Baton Rouge to push both entrepreneurship forward with this company, Attracct Accounting, and with real estate investing. So kind of mixes in perfectly with what Falaya has going on. So we're excited to hear about his journey and everything that he's got going on, and he's providing the city of Baton Rouge. So welcome, John.
Yeah, happy to be here, Barrett. Great studio, man. Good setup.
Yeah, man. We worked hard on this. You know, we got Jacob in the chair over there. We've been putting in a lot of work, and so happy to have you in. And you've been doing the same thing with the Red Stick Real Estate group, and so excited to have you in here. I guess tell everybody a little bit about who you are and kind of what do you do?
Yeah, so John Roberts from here in Baton Rouge, grew up in Shenandoah, St. Michael High School. I played football at Southeastern in college, was a political science major for a while, had dreams of law school. Eventually that switched over to accounting, right? I had an internship. I had a student worker position in the president's office. And he was an old accounting guy and said, dude, you got to focus on business, if nothing else, but for, safety net. And there's only 2 business degrees worth getting right now. Of course, he's biased, but he said it's accounting and finance. And his argument was that, you can learn a lot of those other skills, marketing, management, et cetera, on the job training or with experience. And that with accounting and finance, you can do everything that the other business majors do, but it doesn't work, the opposite way. And then when it came down to accounting or finance, it was the same thing. Accountants can do everything that finance majors can't, but not necessarily the flip side, right? So I said, man, I'll really challenge myself to go for accounting. I talked to my dad about it, and his exact words were, accountants are a dime a dozen. And I'm like, what do you think now, Dad?
Yeah.
So man, I had a real bad injury my senior year of football at Southeastern. I tore my ACL, MCL, and PCL, and it turned out to be a defining moment of my life, really. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to, I had dreams of the LSAT, right? I had it scheduled. I didn't take it. I paid for the course. I paid for the test and everything. Didn't show because I had the surgery like the day before, right?
Okay.
And so I was going to drop out of school. The professors at Southeastern, in fact, I've reconnected with a lot of them now. They want me to come back and speak, and I'm like so happy, excited to do it. But they were like, John, you cannot drop out. Like, you're so close, and I was going to take a semester or 2 off. And they said, we'll do whatever it takes so that you can pass, like we'll extend your deadlines. You can take tests after hours. Cause I was going to therapy 6 hours a day. Oh. And so, Postway Netterville was recruiting on campus, and that's where I got my start in accounting. And they said, John, we expect all of our staff to pass the CPA exam. And so I said, sure, that's going to be so easy. And, little did I know it was like the hardest thing I've ever done. And so worked there for 4 years, decided to try my hand at corporate accounting. So I went and worked at Epic Piping in corporate finance, and that was an awesome experience. Private equity backed, Bernhard Capital owns that company. And so just getting a lot of exposure to that side of things. And then what I do now is I co-own a accounting consulting firm, and I'm a real estate investor. On the accounting consulting side, it's, way more than a bookkeeper, but and it's a fractional, essentially outsourced accounting department. And we help small businesses know their numbers, know their worth, and know their future. So a lot to unpack there, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool. I guess I want to take it back to the accounting decision because it resonates with me a little bit because my dad's a lawyer, right? So he I had the idea of whether I should go to law school or and opted not to do that as well, just because, man, it's intense, having to read all those books and all of that, and then you're just living inside a paper week after week. I was actually a finance major at LSU until my senior year. I actually passed the senior capstone class, so I could have graduated in finance, but I didn't really want to go into finance. I ended up going into marketing because I loved marketing and doing fun stuff, and I didn't want to be stuck behind the desk. So I took a little, but I completely agree with your thought process on that you can learn those skills outside of that. But I do have, it's an interesting mix of what I have, because I took the upper level accounting classes and the upper level finance classes, but then got the degree in marketing, which is stupid. I probably should have gotten a double degree, but it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
It doesn't really matter, right? If you're going to go into entrepreneurship.
That's right.
I mean, honestly, unless you're going to go work for a big Fortune 500 company or some big company, does it really matter? I mean, at the end of the day, what value can you bring?
Yeah, and I think that there are probably skills that you learned in school, or at least exposure to different types of things in finance and accounting that you obviously use on your business end now, right? So many marketing folks, and my wife was a marketing major, and I have a ton of friends who are marketing majors, but they're not as inclined to step out into entrepreneurship because they can't read a P&L. They don't know how bank financing works and things like that. So, no knock on any marketing majors out there, because to be fair, I teach accounting to some employees of mine who have finance degrees or maybe have no degree. And that's one thing that we've really been, embracing lately. My guy Kenny Nguyen from 368 calls them STARS, and it's an acronym for a person who basically has skills acquired through other means and not school. I was talking to a guy yesterday who is still paying his student loans from an MBA at Southeastern, right. And it wasn't an executive one because he didn't have 5 years of experience, and so he's like, man, like. Was it really valuable? And no knock on Southeastern by any means, but I've had employees say, John, I think I want to go back and get my MBA. I'm like, for what? Like, I kind of agree. I have my MBA too.
I have my MBA. I absolutely have my MBA, but it's like, for what? I was working for Stanley Black & Decker at the time. So at that time, I was doing sales across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and if I wanted to go the corporate route, you kind of have to have those acronyms behind your name. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But if you're like a business owner or you're operating your own business, I mean, nobody really cares about that, dude. I mean, it doesn't.
And dude, another thing,
and I think that companies, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think companies are starting to go away from that. Like, I don't think companies care anymore if you have an MBA. You know what they care? They care that you can produce a podcast, that you can post on social media, that you can read a P&L, that you can produce. They don't care what title you have, because there's plenty of people that have titles that don't do anything.
You're so right, man. Education has been commoditized. I've heard since, I've done a little bit of research on this, and since, the government backed student loans, or in like the 80s or whatever, student loan debt has just gone way up. And these universities are saying, man, I'm getting free money. This is government backed money, right? And so it's become just a factory of just printing paper that is your degrees. And, I used to think like, neither of my parents finished college. And, my dad would always tell me, a degree is a degree. And I'm learning now, like, that's really not true. And also, it matters where you go. And an MBA from Southeastern, and I went to Southeastern, and I think they've got a great MBA program. But if, Amazon's hiring a chief, financial officer, and it's my MBA at Southeastern, which I don't have, versus an MBA from Tulane or Vanderbilt or Harvard, I'm not getting the job. Oh, and by the way, I don't have the network that these guys have.
It really boils down to the network. Right? That's what it really boils down to. You're paying for some connections and networking, and some experience and knowledge. And there are better programs. So I don't want to say education doesn't have its place, but to your point, if you can be self-motivated and teach yourself, there's really, with the way the internet is now, and that anything, you could teach yourself anything. You really can. And so it's not so much that is how hard can you push yourself to perform and learn. You can go learn to code a website, you can go learn to code all this stuff, and you really can in less than a year if you really want to. The question is, do you really want to?
And how assertive are you going to be, right? Like, I'm sure we'll get to this later, but I mean, that's real estate investing for me.
For sure.
Took 0 real estate investing classes in college. None of my professors know anything about real estate investing. It wasn't even offered, right? And I have, again, a guy, a teammate of mine, he's an excellent part of our team. I mean, the company's like built on his back. And we had this conversation like, dude, do I need to go back to school? Like we said earlier. And I'm like, I can send you to a week-long seminar of people who are just like you, learning from somebody who's done it, not just teaching theory. Right. And you'll get more value in that 1 week than an entire year of, formal education, in my opinion.
Oh,
right?
The doing, right? Especially in real estate investing and in real estate, period. And that's where I think Falaya adds a whole lot of value. Like, people don't realize that I'm getting my master's right now in real estate. Like I've done over 350 transactions in the last 2 years. Is there any other, by myself, like with Jacob helping me, it's a transact, but like this isn't a team of 10 or 20 agents. This is Barrett Blondo, right? So what I'm trying to say is there's power in that. There's power in that experience and that knowledge of knowing how to close a deal and get a deal across the goal line. And the only way you really know how to do that type of stuff is by doing it. You can talk about it all you want, but the reality is you have to actually execute and do it. And school is great to kind of give you a framework to push you to perform, for people that can't do it on, like that need that structure, Sure. What I mean? And there's a lot of people that do need that, right? They can't make themselves wake up like you and me and go work. I've already ran 8 miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's some people need that motivation. They need to clock in, clock out to be able to do it.
Yeah, I spoke to a group of young men who were heading off to college. A lot of them went to Catholic High, and some went to Parkview. And I've really got ties to neither because I went to St. Michael. But I'm friends with their dad, and the kids are obviously interested in learning about real estate and just life, right? And I told them that, in order to be successful in today's world, and I just made this up, and it's probably not that catchy, but I call it, the 3 Bs. You got to have a strong back, you got to have balls, and you got to have brains. Right?
I like that.
And so, like, that to me is the formula for success, right? And it can go in so many areas. If we're talking brains, it's not the brains to go learn it in a book, but first you got to have the courage to get it started, and then it's the brains to say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and how can I fine-tune this process to get better next time? That's a fact. And is my back strong enough to get my ass beat, and come back for more?
That's what I was wondering what back meant.
Yeah.
I kind of have a bad back. Like, I'm just messing around.
No, dude, it's a strong back, man.
I got a strong back in that aspect. I've got it.
100%.
If you go talk to the doctor and he scans my back, he's going to be like, oh, no.
The running's probably not good for that, is it?
I mean, there were some car accidents in my 20s. I was a bit of an idiot from about 18 to 23, and my back suffered due to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, But, I mean, what are you going to do? Hang it up? No. You're going to go out there and run or lift and get in the gym and make it work. I tell you what, the best thing that ever happened to me for my back, and anyone that might be watching, legitimately your back, is to work out and stretch and to move and to do stuff. To like sit painful on the couch and continue to sit painful on the couch is worse. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to push through that and then get it across there and stretch and work out, and that's been the best thing for me.
Yeah, you know what they say, moss don't grow on a rolling stone,
right?
And
oh, that's true.
So to speak. I mean, I'm sure it's meant in a different way, but it's like, man, a body in motion stays in motion, and and that was a thing too that I told the young men's group. Like, number one rule, get up early. Like, show me a successful dude and I'll show you, or lady, and they're up, before everyone else who works for them. You know what I mean?
I would agree.
And they're up before the rest of their family, probably.
I would say so. Like, you're up before your family.
Oh yeah, I'm up at 4, man. I'm up at 4 every day.
And there was a point at which I was a 4 a.m. guy, but like recently I've been more of like a 5:36.
Yeah.
But that was my summertime. But then what I usually typically do is I go nuts once the time changes. Like, I'll go into the 5 a.m. because it resets, and so when it resets, I've been waking up at 6, but now I'm 5. Mm-hmm. I don't change the time change, and then that's where I start hammering where other people don't, and then that's where they quit. In October, in November, and most people are like, "Oh, it's the holidays."
Oh yeah, and then it's Mardi Gras, and then it's spring break.
It's always something.
It's always something.
Louisiana's the biggest about that, man. We got a party for everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's so true, man. It's I think I've done the math once, and if you get up 2 hours earlier before everyone else, you get like an extra 700 hours a year. And I can't do that math that quick in my head, but it's probably like 2 months.
Right.
You know, and so you look at anyone who grows a business and it looks like they're an overnight success. Well, the difference is that every year they got 700 hours on you, you know, and they did in 5 years what it would take you 10 years to do after a compounding effect.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing, man. And I wasn't always like, you know, waking up early either. I mean, I can remember when I started my career, you know, rolling out of bed and then making it to work at 8:15.
Right.
And because that was the standard, right? That was what all my coworkers did. Like I thought that was the way that it went. Right. And then, you know, I started surrounding myself with people who were in positions that I wanted to be in. And then I emulated their habits. Like I had to be so careful with who I emulate and like what do I accept as the norm in my life, right? And that's kind of been the biggest, I guess, transformation for me since, man, probably I left corporate America in late 2021. It's just now I get to choose my tribe, and you know, I now feel like there used to be an imposter syndrome effect, right? Like I'm like, these guys have all these properties, and you know, they have something that I don't. Like I don't have what it takes to even speak to them. And the more exposure that I got to, you know, just by listening to podcasts, and like these are real people too who have real problems, and all they have is the 3 Bs, you know, and I have that. Right. And so the minute that I started, and again, not to sound arrogant, but the minute that I started, you know, seeing in myself what other people saw in me, it was a game changer. Right. You know, and I'm still not there yet, man. There's so much that I have left to do and to succeed. And I still make mistakes, and I overcommit, and, you know, I take on too much, and I ride my team too hard, and I don't spend enough time at home. But I mean,
that's the tough part about it. Is like, that's what they don't tell you, is the balancing of it all, especially when you have a wife and a kid and the family aspect, and you want to dominate there too.
You do.
And so it's like, you know, I want to give her my all too. So it's like, you don't dominate the whole day. It's like, it's intense. It's if you're going to do that and you want to win on all aspects of your life, and balancing all that is almost near impossible. It really is.
It is. And like Saban said, dude, it takes what it takes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I love that
It
quote.
takes what it takes. Like I cannot be everywhere at once, you know, and the thing for me though, I just want to stay mindful of like, you know, how much I'm taking away from my family. And then that way when I am home, you know, those 2 hours in the evening and then 1 hour before work is like basically my family time. Right. And, you know, if I'm with my kids from like 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and then I'm with them from 6 to 7, like I have to be so in tune with that. And then the weekends too sometimes, although, man, this year I've probably worked 90% of weekends. But I just have to be honest with myself to know, like, I don't want to always be at this pace. But this is what it takes right now.
I would say you're also in the startup phase, right?
Yes.
Like you just took that leap and you're in the startup phase. I mean, at some point that's going to even out, you know, and you're still young and you got to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
I wish I had started when I was your age having this mindset. Mm-hmm. I didn't start until I was in my like early 30s.
What changed for you?
You know, I'd had enough of being an idiot, you know, and just wanted to take control of my life. And I guess it really started in my late 20s, like 24, 25, you know, but I didn't like start getting the momentum of entrepreneurship until my 30s after, you know, Stanley Black & Decker. But, you know, I just really what ended up happening that made me transition immediately was the death of my brother-in-law in a car accident. He passed away on a Tuesday working for somebody in a car accident, going to work, delivering stuff, you know? And I was just like, I was working for Stanley Black & Decker, and I was like, man, if this is not the way I want to go. I mean, it sucks, and so I was like, I want to, if I'm going to die tomorrow, I want to die I want to do what I want to do. And so entrepreneurship, I just jumped straight in and started flipping houses and doing rentals, and then I was an agent, became a broker, all that stuff, that came along with that. But it was really the carpe diem, seize the day thing of real life situation was family. That really pushed me to it,
Yeah, and it's the same for me, man. I mean, I think back to COVID, right? I had a cush corporate job, guaranteed bonuses and guaranteed increases of my salary and stuff like that. But when COVID hit and I was at home a lot and I had a lot more time to think, there was a few transformational things. I did 75 hard, and that just forced me. For those of you who don't know, I guess I'll try to go off of a memory of what it takes. But basically, you work out twice a day. One of them has to be outside. Each of them have to be for 45 minutes. You have to drink a gallon of water a day, read 10 pages of nonfiction. You have to take a progress picture every day. You have to stick to pick a diet and stick to it. And then no alcohol for 75 days. And so my second workout would be like a walk/run, and it would just be only podcasts. And I would listen to business podcasts just like this, especially local ones, like learn like who's in the market.
Right.
And then just open my eyes to like what was really out there for me. Right. But it only happened because I was intentional about like making myself do it at that time, and setting a goal and going for it. And so when COVID hit, I'm like, man, am I really realizing my full potential? And so I started plotting, and it was in June of 2020 that my brother and I partnered up and started the real estate investing company. Like that was our first purchase. And that was, right when things were getting dumb, right? World shut down in March and June, nobody knew anything about anything. And, and then it was also like the birth of my second daughter. So my first daughter was born in September of 2019, and my second daughter was born in May of 2021. We've got another one on the way, another daughter this December. Thanks. And I'm like, man, I've got two kids here. My wife is working her butt off. I know that I've got more to give, and I just didn't feel like I was being challenged enough. And I was just a cog in a wheel. And I said, man, something's got to shake here. So rates were real low. Mortgage rates were low. And I had been on a 15-year mortgage. So like I had built a lot of equity in my house.
Wow.
And I refinanced into a 30-year at a lower rate. And I spread my payments out further. And I'm like, okay, I've got an extra couple $1,000 a month to play with. Like, let me see if I can make something work. Right. And at that time too, my people started getting interested in what I was doing from an investment perspective. So when it came time to, get private money lenders and stuff like that, it was just on. So, we bought, I think 6 properties in 2020 and then, I think we did 3 in 2020 and then we did like 6 in 2021. And then 2022, we just went gangbusters. We bought 11. And now though we're slowing down.
Good. I would slow down. Right
so, but it was just a time of reflection for me. And then, my circle changed, right? I wasn't really talking to the people in high school that I went to who worked 9 to 5s. Like I'm talking to guys like Sterling and Assis Asharia, who's a CPA mentor of mine, one of my best friends. I'm talking to Aldo Russo, who owns HDMK. When folks figured out that I had a knack for, just keeping up with people's books, folks who I haven't talked to since high school, Brock LeBlanc from Signature Roofing reached out. And the next thing you know, man, I'm talking to, a tribe of millionaires, of local millionaires. And a lot of them don't know they're millionaires. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what does it take to be a millionaire? Well, you take your total assets and then you subtract your total liabilities. If your net worth is above $1 million, you are a millionaire, quote unquote.
Right.
You don't have $1 million in the bank, but next thing I know, it's like we're talking about buying businesses. We're not talking about fantasy football. And no offense to anybody who plays fantasy football, but they're like, John, you want to play? I'm like, dude, I have no idea what is happening in sports. Dude, I don't watch TV.
I don't either.
You know? And it's just a different world, man.
I used to be really into fantasy football. And full disclosure, Jacob is fully into fantasy football, and he records videos in here as a commissioner sitting right in the seat. So he's really into it. I was really into it at his age too.
Yeah.
And then, when I started, I don't have time for that. I still play, but I'm the dumb guy on the league now because I'm not like living on the waiver wire and I'm not like watching the video. I can't be that dialed in. I'm kind of like just throwing it up there and seeing if I get lucky,
Dude, and LSU recruiting, like there are dudes out there who know every prospect that, LSU staff is going after, and everybody thinks like I'm a big football guy, dude. I bet I've watched 5 football games in the last 5 years. I don't have time for it. And I would love to eventually one day, but I derive my value, I think, from, what people say about me when I'm not around and what my kids think about me, and not from whether my team wins or loses.
Yeah. No doubt. That's a fact. I've been doing a lot of losing lately. I'm like middle of the pack in my league, and it's a little depressing because I'm competitive too, but I don't have time to invest in it. So it's like, I still do play, but I don't work at it at all like I used to.
And no knock on the people who have that. It's just that, it just doesn't align with my goals.
Whatever your outlet is, my outlet's running and working out a lot, you got to have some type of outlet. So some people, that could be their outlet,
Yeah. And I'm like you, man. Gym is my outlet. I mean, I purposely work out with a guy who's way stronger than me. And, he pushes me. And then, his business partner works out with us in the morning.
Where do y'all work out?
At Gold's in Prairieville. So, I live in Baton Rouge, close to Prairieville. And they push me. Like, I know that I don't have enough discipline to go out there and do it on my own because I feel, and this is maybe a loser's mentality, but I feel like I only have a certain amount of discipline in my day, and if I exert it all in my day-to-day job, then, when I get home, I'm like, let's go to Andy's or let's go to Cane's, and I just need people to hold me accountable in the gym.
No doubt. Well, that's why I run with Varsity Sports a lot. Jenny Peters is a great friend of mine. So, a lot of those people hold me accountable, and I'm running in this heat. Today was awesome. It was the best run that we've had.
Oh, dude, it's beautiful today.
It was gorgeous. Yeah. It was like the breeze was out. It was like nice out there. But anyway, you can't like run in this heat with that. But I work out in the gym kind of by myself. I have my routine, but I need to be better about the gym because I do the gym, but it's more like checking the box in the gym, and I need to be more dialed in the gym. I would say I still do it, but I probably don't do it the way I should do it, like you're saying.
Yeah, and I know, like in my heart of hearts, I know when I gave it my best.
I know.
And I have been there, and I'm like, man, what can I do to make sure that I don't have this regret anymore of not doing my best? And so when I'm in the gym, I know that those guys are going to push me because, we do 4 sets of 15 on everything. I've never done 15 reps of any exercise in my entire life. And I'm like stopping at 10, stopping at 12. And they're like, no, 3 more, And I tell myself that like I'm sitting in my computer, trying to bang out like some sort of like screwed up tax return. And I just keep telling myself 3 more. Like you got more in the tank.
You do.
And man, I read David Goggins' book during 75 Hard, and that was amazing. And, the next thing I start realizing that I don't have to be beholden to the expectations or the norms of even people who I respect. Like I can respect you and love you and honor you, but when it comes to business, there might be someone out there who knows a little bit more than you or has done a little bit of different items. Like Dave Ramsey, man, I took the Dave Ramsey course in like 2020 or 2021, and it was an awesome experience. But now, like the people who were in my class, like
debt ID on debt.
You know, they have no debt, but they have no assets either.
Yeah, you gotta leverage, baby.
That's what I'm
leverage.
saying.
I mean, yeah, as long as you can cover it, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the only kicker.
Oh yeah.
If you got enough reserves,
you're right, man.
You know, you do have to have reserves. You can't just be leveraged to the hilt. It's a balancing act. You can't go all the way this way and you can't go all the way that way. You gotta balance the two.
And that's business too, man. I mean, a real estate investor is a business owner. Right. And you know, you look at any, just say trucking company around, like you think that they all own those trucks outright? Chances are no. Right? They're paying notes on the truck. They're borrowing in order to, you know, turn around and make a profit, right? And when you understand that debt is what makes this country like the number one economy in the world, or up until recently, right? It's the ability to have a trusting relationship with a lender who's going to help you scale. You trust your people, you trust your processes, and you just borrow, and then it just shoots way up. And I learned that, you know, from Jim Bernhardt, right. You know, and, you know, I've actually like had one conversation with Jim in my life, and he won't even remember it. And it wasn't even a conversation. It was like a brief, like couple of, you know, exchanges.
Right.
And, but when I look at, you know, what he's been able to build with, you know, his Bernhardt Capital portfolio, and even before then with the Shaw Group, man, it's just amazing to see how, you know, business owners like that work. You know, Donnie Jarrow is a good friend of mine. Same way. You know, take anybody in town who is doing big things. Like you think Mike Wampold lives with no debt? You know what I mean? Like, no. It's just a different game out there once you kind of flip the switch and say, okay, I can stay here and, you know, play it safe, or I can, you know, bet on myself and let's see what happens.
Yeah. And you got to take structure bets, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing is like, what do you know? What are you good at? What have you done in the past? And what can you improve on? And I'd say all those guys that you mentioned are leveraging the debt in areas that they know well, whether that's commercial real estate, whether that's contracting, city, municipality stuff, piping, like it all electrical, it all ties in to the same core competencies that they have, which you got to leverage up on what you're good at, not just leverage up, period, right? Whether that's accounting or real estate. And that way it's an educated guess, and it puts you in the right thing to be successful.
100%. And that's kind of where I'm at now. You know, a lot of people are like, because I host the real estate meetup, John, how many deals are you doing? I'm like, I've done like 2 deals this year. And one of them was an owner occupied office that is from my firm. Right. And, the question is, well, why? Well, number one, obviously the market turned.
Smart.
And it's I've seen
most real estate brokers won't tell you that.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you that. I would not be risking it all right now. I really wouldn't. I'd be taking if my advice right now for anybody that's in real estate investing is to make sure you buy right. If you can find a deal that's right, do it. Take it down, but don't be on the edge. Like, are the numbers going to work? If the numbers are sketchy, buy. Like, this is not one of those things where you're like, okay, let's just do it to see if we can do it. Like, this is not the time to do it.
No, you're right.
You know what I mean?
It's not a sandbox anymore, dude. Like, you know, I used to say, and it's still true, but, you know, making money in real estate, it's not a matter of if, but when. And it's still true today. But the problem is, can you weather the storm that is the next 3 or 4 years of high interest rates when you underwrote to a rate that was 3 percentage points less than what it is today? And for a lot of investors, the answer is no. So what are you trying to do now? Well, you've got to sell some properties, right? And, you know, you're not selling them for the equity that you thought you had in it because you were making business moves last year or 2 years ago and betting on the fact that you had this in your savings account, right? I'll just sell my property for X, Y, or Z and I'll cash out. And I've made that same mistake too. I mean, you know, I am self-aware and honest with myself enough to know like I needed to chill out a little bit. But on the flip side, it's drilling down into instead, like, what are my other core competencies? Right. Like with accounting.
That's what I'm saying. You're attacking on another. It's like me. Like, I could be flipping houses right now and taking down more rentals. Yeah. I could be doing that all day, dude. Deals come across, but I'm not really taking down any more rentals. I'm just holding tight on 6, and I'm not flipping. And the reason why is Falaya. You know why? Because I think the thing's going to go to the freaking moon. And same thing with you. You're Attracct, right? And so you can only go at something so much, and your time is valuable, and you have to put it in places. And so, you're making the right decision and attacking at Attracct.
Yeah, my life has changed, man. Like when I started investing in 2020, as assistant controller in corporate finance, like I said, salary was good, all that. It wasn't great. But that path is basically, you move around every 3 to 5 years, and every time you move a company.
That's how Stanley Black & Decker was.
And so I look back at, my investment thesis back then, and it was, okay, I'm going to invest in real estate. I'm going to buy, 12 properties a year if I can, when things really got moving, when I got the good deal flow. And 12 properties a year used to seem crazy to me until I hired a full-time property manager, until I met every wholesaler in town, until I met 10 lenders that will lend to me at the drop of a hat. And I just built these systems. But then it was like, and my goal was 60 properties. Okay. Because my brother's my partner, right? And I got a little, a false sense of security in the beginning because my rentals were cash flowing really well because rates were so low, and I just bought right.
Were they on fixed rates? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so I thought, and it spread out over 30 years instead of 20. So my amortization schedule was longer on those first deals, and I'm like, man, I can make $5,000 a year each property, and it ain't $5,000, dude. You're lucky if you clear like 2.
You're not making money.
No.
Rentals that's what they don't. People go to rentals. You do not make money on rentals. Like if you think you're going to get rich on rentals, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind. It's like a slow burn. It's like, how rich can I get over 15 years? That's what it really boils down to. Now if you put your head down, you work on some other businesses and you buy rentals, and then you look back, and then the appreciation plus the debt pay down from the rental, I mean, you're rich.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong, rentals are great, but people that go into these real estate groups, I just need to buy a bunch of rentals. I'm like, no, you don't. Because do you have money to pay for the AC? Do you have money to pay for the hot water heater? Oh yeah, what about that roof, dude? And I'm going to tell you what, insurance.
Oh yeah.
So let's not even get around the change in insurance rates.
Yeah, or when your tenant floods your house. Yeah, I mean, because he's pissed off that he's getting evicted. I used to think, dude, $5,000 per property, which was wrong. 12 a year. And so after 5 years, I would be generating $300K a year in passive income.
Makes sense.
And my brother's my partner, so split that in 2, $150K a year. I mean, I was like golden, right? The difference is now it's like $1,000 or $2,000 probably per year, if we're being honest, after maintenance and turnover and stuff like that. And now I'm to the point where I have now a business that I can pour into. So like, for instance, I've probably spent, I don't know, 40 grand on processes and stuff in my business, to optimize that.
Yeah.
Right. And my return is so much higher. Like real estate investing is a get rich slow scheme. Investing a business or owning a business, you can get rich quick if you do it right.
I agree. Businesses are the way to cash flow. So the best thing to do is set yourself up with a business that cash flows, right? And then get into real estate investing and use that. And then the kicker on rentals is the depreciation, right? So you get all of that tax free. So now all the income that he's getting from Attracct is now getting. He's not paying taxes on it because he's got 10 properties and he's depreciating them. So he's got maybe $60,000 worth of net income that he can write off plus other things. And so it's just the rental game is better for that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it helps you with that and long-term growth, but it's not a daily. You can't count on that money to pay your electricity bill, and you can't count on that money to pay your water bill. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like people have to realize that, because if they don't, they're going to get burned.
For sure. And, real estate investing is the number one tax strategy that I use with all my clients. But here's the difference. I know the wholesalers. I know the lenders. I know the rehab crew. I know the insurance agents. And so we provide that service to my clients as well. and they're pumped up about it. You do get into a situation where you've got passive and non-passive income, and so for me, honestly, on my long-term rentals, those are passive. So I can't
I'm
use
a real
that.
estate professional.
I'm
a real estate professional.
Yeah, so you can lump it all together.
It is different for me than it is for other people, so we do need to clear that up.
Yeah, but if they invest in short-term rentals, right now the tax code treats short-term rentals as almost like hotels, right? So you can take those typically passive losses because it's a rental, but it's not really a rental, make them non-passive losses, and then have that offset your W-2 or business income. There's that strategy. There's the strategy of, getting your wife to qualify as a real estate professional if she's always had a knack for it. But man, there's a lot of rules around that, material participation rules, and, the majority of your hours, and the real estate professional status is the number one litigated, part of the tax code because it's so beneficial. And you got to have you got to be on your P's and Q's with time logs and stuff like that if you ever get asked. But it's being able to provide that value to our clients, and more importantly, it's seeing the look on their faces when their tax bill last year was $150 grand and now it's 30.
See your value immediately. Yeah. It's like it's that, and that's immense that you can provide that value for people, because being able to look at that from both the real estate perspective and from the accounting perspective, that has immense value, and that's what people need because you go to some of these accountants and they're just about filing taxes or filing paperwork and making it legal. And they're not really thinking about what's best for you. And I would even argue that this is also what you need to, that's something that could add a lot of value to your high net worth individuals is that when they move around money for buying stocks, bonds, all of that, and being able to educate them not only in the real estate space, but when they sell off this stock, what is the tax consequence and what is this? Like, that's the next step, I think, where you could provide some immense value and work with these financial planners to couple your business with them. And because that's what that becomes a big thing. Not only are they investing in real estate, but they're also investing in stocks and bonds, and they have tax consequences when those things get sold. Mm-hmm. Plus, you already know what the real estate consequence is from that flip. They're going to make $50K, and then if they make the tax, so you have all the knowledge. You understand what I'm saying?
No, dude, you're speaking my language, because I've had this exact conversation at Albasha on South Sherwood like a month ago with a financial advisor who, I think Attracct is going to develop a relationship with, because a lot of financial advisors hate real estate, or they
do. That's the problem.
But this one likes
because
it.
They take money out.
And the thing is the pitch is a fractional family office. A lot of people don't know what family offices are. A family office is a full-time, on-staff CPA, attorney, deal guy, financial advisor for high net worth families, or maybe groups of families. And all they do is invest and manage those families' portfolios. It could be businesses that they own, real estate, etc. And so the idea is that Attracct will be the CPA spoke on the fractional family office wheel. The thing about that is, you just have to be able to, work as a team. You've got to be able to communicate well between the financial advisor and then the attorney, but all servicing, one client. And I've even considered, because I went to this big CPA conference in Vegas called Engage. It's AICPA. It's the number one CPA conference. And man, it was just unbelievable. But a lot of CPAs are now moving more towards getting their certifications to manage money, because it's recurring revenue, man. And it's set it for a lot of people. It's set it and forget it. If you're risk averse. Now, for the folks who are more risky, I think that they would like to have someone who understands a little bit more about investing in businesses or investing in real estate.
Well, see, that would be something that Baton Rouge needs a lot of. Yeah. So if you could do that, I would totally tell you to do that. It would really change the atmosphere of Baton Rouge, because family offices are what invest in companies like Falaya, right? Mm-hmm. So they go and they invest in businesses and other situations to help growth capital and stuff like that. And and Louisiana doesn't have a lot of them.
No.
Louisiana has not had enough of them. And so if you could figure out a way to pull that capital together, it could make a serious impact, not only for the city of Baton Rouge, but the companies that are inside of it, you know? And so it's definitely a cool thing that you're talking about doing.
And what you said is another tax strategy that I should have told you about earlier. For the folks who have passive losses that they can't unlock, what happens is they just carry forward year after year unless you have other passive income to offset it. How do you get passive income? You invest passively in businesses that generate passive income to you. So now all of a sudden that income that is passive on the business side is now offset. It's shielded by your losses on the passive real estate side. And now you're not paying any taxes on the money that you make from that business. Gotcha. And so that's a real strategy too that works for non-real estate professionals. And I've gotten a few really good business deals like sent across my desk of like, John, do you want to invest or do you want to buy this business? And to your point from earlier, I'm in the startup phase still. Like I'm plugging away at tax returns and I'm trying to find people to help me with that. And I think where it's going to have to go, in order for me to get those people, I'm going to have to buy their business.
Right.
And I'm going to have to, buy their company. Right. And get the employees to come with them.
Right.
It's the Shaw mentality, man. Eat them all up and put the bad ones out. You know,
I love it.
And we've got just this master growth plan, man. My partner Armin Michaud and I, we went off in the woods in April of 2022, and we implemented EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System.
Okay.
It's a system that's based off this book called Traction by Gino Wickman.
So Gavin gave me that book, and I've been reading it. I haven't read it all. I've read a couple chapters.
Yeah,
I need to finish it.
Yeah, man. I would encourage you to take action on it because it'll change your business. So what we did was we mapped out our 10-year plan, our 3-year goals, our 1-year goals, and then we broke that 1-year goal down into quarterly rocks. So like, what are the things that we need to do this quarter in order to meet our 1-year, 3-year, and 10-year?
Right. And
we were so detailed with, where do we want to work? What employees do we want to have? We designed the org chart. We talked about our pricing. We talked about our processes and our avatar, like who is our ideal client. And that way we had it in place to where every time an opportunity presented itself to take on a new client or to hire a new person, does it fit the plan? No. Well, then we can't do it. Right. And that is so important just in life too. I mean, I have a vision board, man, and Sterling taught me that. And, every day I look at the vision board and I've knocked out some of the things that are on my vision board. And, I even use, this is no disrespect at all, but when folks like scoff at my vision or my dreams, I write it down and the date that they said it and I put it on my vision board. Like, that's just my motivation, man. Yeah, and so all that to say that, Traction implementing EOS has just, been really great for our company. And it's a good recruiting pitch too, because it's like someone wants to come work for a company that has a vision. And the same way, we flip it to accounting. Like, where our value is too is budgeting and forecasting. Like, we're setting a budget for the year, like a goal. A lot of people think budget means just expenses, but it's expenses and revenue. Right. And the revenue is built off of backlogs. So like, what is your capacity to even take on more work? And, if you don't have a plan and you're operating a business, it's like, joining a weight loss challenge and never stepping on the scale. Right. Like, you're never measuring yourself against anything. And so my partner Armin and I, we meet quarterly, we go off site and we review the prior year quarter or the previous quarter, and we review it against the plan, EOS. And what I found is we set our goals way too low, but we had no idea. When you're in the startup phase, you have no idea what could happen.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's just been, it's hard to like know exactly the steps you need to take. I mean, you look at the, steps of expanding to Louisiana, to Mississippi, to Georgia, and we're on another big state to announce soon. So, how do you do those things responsibly, and what are the big hurdles to do it? And it's hard to know. And sometimes things will come at you that are great, and sometimes things will come at you that are bad, and you've got to learn how to process that all and adapt to it. I think at some level you got to have a clear vision on what you're doing. The way I look at it is this, right? So you got to be so, devoted to what you're doing. Like, I believe Falaya. I think Falaya, the automation of documents, process, and with on-demand support is going to change the way that real estate is done. Whether it's Falaya, Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, somebody's going to do what I'm doing, and they're going to nail it. And I firmly believe that. The question then is, like, I'm going after that goal, and I'm nothing stopping me from that goal. I'm going to go after it. But you also have to be adaptable enough to listen to user feedback, listen to what John says, Sterling says, or other people say, take criticism, bring it in, realize what you need to change. What I thought was important was not important. I thought it would be people that were in their 30s that would want to use Falaya, right? Well, it turns out the majority of people are in their 40s or 50s because they bought and sold several homes. And, I thought that average sales price would be a little bit lower, but no, it's in the $400,000 to $500,000. So it's like, because there's more equity, which means there's more savings, right? And so it's interesting. You have to be able to adapt enough, but still be focused and never give up and have a strong back, like you talk about resiliency and going after your goal and laser focus.
Yeah, and if you don't believe in your product, nobody else will. And if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. And, we were talking a little bit before about, kind of like what I've been watching these days. And again, I don't watch much TV, but like from 9 to 10, my wife and I typically watch something on TV, just spend some time together.
Yeah.
And we've been watching the Conor McGregor Netflix series. And it's just so inspiring, man. He just came from nothing and made himself into like the biggest icon in the world, right? And he just talks about in the beginning, they had footage from him from 2010. And he spoke this thing into existence. He read this book called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. In fact, that book, I was reading that book when I named Attracct.
Oh, really?
Because it's based off the law of attraction.
Okay.
And that is the secret of life that Rhonda Byrne talks about that inspired Conor McGregor. And he talks about how he just never feared defeat. He said he's already won. He doesn't even think about the bad things that could happen. And when bad things do happen, he just adapts and he comes back stronger. And that's kind of how I live my life. We're in a point now of, a little bit of a bottleneck in my company, to be quite honest. We grew faster than I thought that we would.
That's great.
And not to say like that service is suffering, but like my workload is suffering and my team's workload is suffering. You
don't have to tell me, man.
So,
I was up till 10 o'clock last night working. So
I've been
put the kid to bed and went to work for another 2.5 hours. People will never see that. Like, if I was successful, you're gonna be like, oh, Barry's so lucky. He had
timed it just right, huh?
He had all this opportunity. He was so lucky. They don't even know, dude. They don't have a clue what it really takes to do all this. And with Conor McGregor, what enlightens me about that is people always hate on him, and they're like, "Oh God, he's such a brash guy." He's like, I'm like, he's a fighter in MMA. What do you think he needs to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He needs to be a complete ass.
That's right.
And he needs to be strong. He needs to be like resilient. Like, he needs to be exactly who he is to be who he is. Like, like people can't, like, how are you going to hate on him? Like, I mean, you want that, but he is that. I mean, he is the epitome of that. And there's good with that and there's bad with that, and at the end of the day, to be successful in what he's doing is what he is. You know?
And in the documentary towards the end, as they were wrapping up, there was a quote, and I'll probably butcher it, but it was something along the lines of like, reasonable men never did anything of significance.
Right.
Like, do you think that like Martin Luther King was a reasonable dude? Like he like stepped out, right? I mean, do you think that, any business owner around, had he listened to all of the reasonable people around him, like he would be where he's at, or she? It's not true. Any athlete, you think Tom Brady, getting drafted in the 6th or 7th round, whatever it was, like, do you think that if he just said, man, it just didn't work out, I sat the bench for a few years, I'm gonna go into coaching, and look at him, man, it's just so inspiring to know that it takes a little bit of being unreasonable to be successful.
I would agree. I mean, that's exactly for me. I mean, think about this. You don't think there's people talking shit about me?
Yeah.
And Falaya and, fall in line, charge 5% to 6%. You need to do that. And you need to stop talking about that. Why are you doing that? Why are you giving that away? Why are you doing this? You need to stop this. Oh, wait, you need to do iBuying. Oh, I need to do iBuying. Look what's happening in iBuying. No, I'm not doing iBuying. I'm doing what Barrett Blando thinks is right for Falaya. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, there's all this noise. And you just have to know what you know and go after it and attack it. And because at the end of the day, if Falaya is super successful, that's going to be great. If Falaya fails, that's, it's going to suck. At the end of the day, guess who's going to own it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Is us and our team. And you can only do that. You can only let your head hit the pillow if you follow what you believe.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like if you listen to other people and if I try to fall in line with what these other people do or this people do or those people do, then I fail. I'm gonna be like, why did I listen to those fools?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I knew that was the right decision. Why did I go in this direction? You know what I mean?
Dude, it's the man in the arena quote, man. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt. And it's a long quote, but basically he says, it's not the critic who counts. It's the man who's going to get in the arena. He's put in the work, and if at least he tries and if he tries and fails, he fails valiantly. And that's how I want to live my life. Like I don't want to not step up to the plate because I'm afraid to strike out.
Right.
I want to know that I gave it my very best. And if my best wasn't good enough, then so be it. But to your point, like I'll at least go to sleep knowing that I gave my best.
That's right.
And I wouldn't.
That's
live with
why
regret.
I wake up early, and that's why I go after and attack it. Is that I know at the end of the day I did the best I could with what I got.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can hang your hat on that. But that's funny that you bring up that quote because that quote's hanging in my home office. My dad gave it to me when I started Falaya, and it's hanging up in my office.
I love
so
that.
that's pretty cool. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's just a situation where you surround yourself with people who feel the same way.
Right.
They're like, if I'm thinking about not going after a client who I think is too big for me, I've got my friends saying, dude, go for it. Like, you could do it. If you fail, at least you fail valiantly, And I just never want to live with that regret. I was listening to Kevin Costner on a podcast once, and this was even before I watched Yellowstone, which before the McGregor, like, dude, we watched all of that. And Kevin Costner was Tim Ferriss's podcast, and Kevin, he asked kind of where does your motivation come from, and Kevin Costner said something like, my dad grew up in the Dust Bowl and things were just tough. Like all he could do was just put food on the table. And he said that, he was with his dad when his dad was an adult. And for some reason, his dad was like in the bathtub one day. And like Kevin Costner walked in and he said, Dad, like, what are you thinking about? And his dad said, I worked every damn day to put food on the table just to get out this damn Dust Bowl. And now look at you. And man, I'm tearing up because like, that's kind of the story of my life too, And so like, people ask me, what motivates me, and it's the people who came before me, man. It's my grandfather who was a carpenter, right? Who, and it's my dad who didn't graduate college, but like built a badass business. And, it's my mom who like worked till 6 p.m. every day, and I was the last kid picked up from daycare every day. I was so pissed every day. And it's everyone who ever believed in me. It's the college or the high school football coach who made, $50,000 a year, but like really poured into me. Yeah. And he drove a bus to make ends meet. Right. So like, if I get presented with an opportunity and I'm going to half-ass it, then I'm cheating all of them in my mind.
Doubt.
You know,
no doubt. I mean, you have to realize that, you know, it's bigger than you, and there's so many people that have poured into me and Julie Rivers, Wakely. I mean, the list goes on. My mom, my dad. I mean, there's just so many people that have supported me through thick and thin, because it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows.
No.
You know what I mean? And it won't be, right?
No.
So it won't be. There's going to be hard times for us in the coming years, and you have to. That crew that's supporting you is so important. Like for entrepreneurs out there that are out there, you have to have that structure in place and the people supporting you and your why and what motivates you. Because if not, when it gets hard, because it's gonna get hard, you have to build on that. And if you don't have that, I think you're probably not going to be successful. And I don't mean to be mean, but it's like, because it will. It was very interesting. Like who was it? Rachel Eggy, like she did that.
Yeah.
She did that. We did her on our podcast for Patty G, and she shaved her head last year
on stage,
and everybody was talking trash and saying that it was publicity stunt, and she's just worried about herself, and all she's doing it is for the hype and Facebook. And then the music stops, and she goes back to her studio. And she partners up with Mary Berry Perkins. She gets people in the seat. She starts giving away wigs. She's like, she does the work.
Yeah, she's
you see what I'm
bought
saying?
in.
Like, in other words, like you can talk about it all you want, but it's the work that's going to tell the story.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
And you know, words or stunts, they're just ink on paper, man. But time will tell.
Time will tell.
And time's telling for her. Like right. I've followed her, man. She and I go way back. We're about the same age.
Okay.
And we grew up in the same area, and we're not in touch. But I've followed her. I listen to all of her stuff. Yeah. And you know, she's another one who, just from what I could see, is someone who kind of took matters into her own hands. Like a lot of, you know, females, I think, go to say beauty school as maybe just like, oh, I don't know what else I'm gonna do. I guess I'll go to hair school. And she just like flipped it on its head. And is just, you know, apparently killing it. Yeah. And I just love that, man. I love people who can just grind it out, because like you don't think she was up till 10 p.m. doing something last night?
She was.
Yeah, like
she was.
That's the type of people.
I guarantee you she was.
Yeah.
And those are the type of people that are going to make a difference in Baton Rouge. And that's why, like, I love having you on this right now. I really think it's a turning point for Baton Rouge with Kenny Wynn, and you, me, Sterling. Like, I think there needs to be a group of young professionals that are willing to put out there that Baton Rouge is a cool city, you know, like highlight people like her, people like you that are doing these things in this city, because we need more people like that, right? And we need people like that to stay here, you know, and produce. And that's the biggest thing I can say for the city of Baton Rouge, which I think all those people are doing that. You're making contact with all those real estate investors. You're making contact with the other people in the community through your business. And so, you know, how many touch points can we do to attract more talent into Baton Rouge?
Yeah.
You know,
it's a tough call, man, because, you know, I'm honestly long on Baton Rouge. Like, I mean, I've been here for a while and all that. It's just that there's, to your point, there's not enough of us in contact with each other, right? And that's why I love this podcast, or any podcast in general, because, you know, even if you only get, you know, X amount of views, it's like it's a time capsule.
It is.
Like, it would be so cool in 5 years to look back at this conversation and like talk about the struggles that our businesses were facing. And that's why I'm really appreciative for you guys of, you know, putting something like this on. And you know, the more that we talk to each other, I mean, there's strength in numbers, right? You know, there are some things that, you know, even clients of mine are getting some bang up grants and loans from LED to grow their businesses.
They've reached out to me, LEDs, on a couple things.
And so that's what it takes, man. It takes, in my mind, a strong business community that reinvests in the area, and with that brings jobs, brings lowers crime. You know, it basically brings more infrastructure, which is obviously what we need. And I think that's the only way. If Baton Rouge is in a mess right now, that's the only way out. In my mind, it is becoming more business focused.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of untapped areas that could be business hubs around here. Like, I mean, there's no reason why Livingston Parish can't be a sub business hub, right? Like, look at all the hubs around Dallas, and Baton Rouge is far from Dallas. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, the fact of our infrastructure, being so old and so centralized, and the roads all going one way essentially, and that's towards downtown. I think that in this new digital age, in this new age of people working from home, that there could be some awesome communities set up that brings jobs.
Yeah. So that's the way I envision. I think Baton Rouge needs a couple things. It needs improvement in infrastructure, like you're saying, bridges, roads, to grow, right? Because that's what's going to happen, and it is happening. It's just taking time. And they need to keep pushing on that. Parks and recreations, I think, are extremely important. People running outside, cool venues like an amphitheater. Why does Baton Rouge not have an amphitheater?
Yeah.
I'm just being honest, like to where we could host Bayou Country Superfest all the time. You don't have to like rent out LSU Stadium, to bring some of this talent in. These performers are willing to come into Baton Rouge. It's been shown. Taylor Swift's been here. Other people have been here. So performers are willing to come to Baton Rouge. We just don't have the place to bring them.
Yeah.
And so I think there needs to be something like that to fill up hotels, restaurants, and bars, which then spins off more businesses, ancillary services to support them, whether that's AC, other things. The jobs that are created there are immense. And then education, right? You got to have good schools, man. The bottom line is business owners, we have to pay for kids' education, right? Thank God Jacob's in Lafayette and the schools in Lafayette are good. But here in Baton Rouge, the schools are not so good. So you almost have to think about private school unless you go out into Livingston Parish or some of these other areas in Ascension where there really are great schools. But in Baton Rouge proper, if you want to live where I live, you almost have to send your kid to private school.
Yeah, it's a shame, man. And to your point, at a certain degree, you almost feel like you're fighting a losing battle. Like you're taking on a wave of just bureaucracy and fixed mindsets, when it comes to, say, changing the education program in Baton Rouge. And obviously poverty is a huge, like the number one deal. And, I think, going back to our talk on education earlier, I mean, man, isn't it so crazy how much the world has changed in the last 20, 30 years and even the last 10 and how nothing in the education system has changed?
Right.
And so I don't know what it's going to take, man. I mean, we've considered homeschooling. Like,
there's a lot of people that have been talking about that. And honestly, during COVID, when they were starting to put those restrictions in, and if they had made me give my son a shot or something like that, I would have homeschooled him.
Yeah.
So there was pressure points in there, and people were almost. I was almost, because I'm paying $12,000 a year right now for Rivers to go to somewhere, and so he I don't want like if 8 of us got together, that's. I mean, dude,
you could hire a professor.
That's $90,000.
Yeah.
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, that's $90,000, dude. We could have and that teacher's only getting paid. I mean, they would get a raise.
That's right.
They're going to get a raise. They're going to have a better quality of life. And I mean, we can almost outsource that, dude. Rent out his place like this and put the kids in. I mean, dude, you know what I mean?
And then have business leaders come speak to them. Yeah. Like, you don't think, someone like Sterling is going to pour into kids?
Oh, I would. I already have. They have the Young Entrepreneurs Academy.
Oh, yeah.
You heard about that?
Yep.
You need to get involved with that.
Yep.
I went and spoke to them, man. That was fun for me.
Yeah, that's what gets me too, man. It's pouring into the youth. But wouldn't it be nice for your kid to know, like, how do loans work? What's a mortgage? What taxes do I owe? Why is it important to get an LLC? What insurances do I need to start a company? Our education system trains people to be employees, right? Which is okay, because we all need employees, right? But if there was an outlet I'll just be honest. I don't want my kid to be an employee. Like I want them to develop the work ethic to go to go the extra mile. But think about this. I had this conversation with somebody, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago. I am going, I donate money to schools or whatever, right? To like my alma mater, my alumni, whatever. Let's say LSU Beta Alpha Psi. Okay, I didn't go to LSU, but Beta Alpha Psi is this accounting honors program. You got to have a 3.0 or above accounting major to be in it. So I'm going to speak there in October, and I want, I'm going to come in as the anti-CPA firm. I'm just not your grandfather's CPA firm, all of that. And but I'm paying money to LSU to go speak, right? And in turn, my goal is to influence people who want to come work on my team, work with us. And it's just a cycle. It's a cycle from the business owner to the university to the student. And it's never ending, right? So getting back to our conversation earlier about donors and whatnot, our school system trains people to be employees, and everyone needs employees, and not everyone has the drive or is willing to take the risk that say we are. Yeah. Like maybe they're just wired differently, and that's no knock on them at all. Like if you're cool with 9 to 5 or
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of benefits to that, dude.
100%.
I'm gonna be honest with you because I think I've gotten a couple more gray hairs since starting this company. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of weight that goes with it. It's not easy.
No.
So you can't discount that.
Not at all.
I think entrepreneurship gets a little too hyped up, and people don't really see the backbone of what it really takes to do it. And it's very rewarding. It's also very tough, And so, there's a lot to be said for just knowing that you're going to get a $6,000 check this month, and you don't have to worry about how it got there.
That's right.
All you got to do is just check your account on a day, and it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if something happens, like God forbid, as a business owner, our health gets in jeopardy, or our family's health gets in jeopardy, who's carrying the boats? There's nobody, right? So we have to navigate that.
That's what it comes back to your processes.
Yeah.
At some point, I've got to take my ass out of the situation.
Right.
Like there's going to be a point at which Barrett Blondo is no longer answering the phone.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about that day because I can't control the quality at that point. You know what I mean?
I'm there.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, but I'm there. But I'm also like, I need it's like I want the 5-star reviews and the referrals and the growing the business and the touch points. But you're also, when you're in it, it's a bottleneck. Like we were talking about.
I read this book called Buy Back Your Time, and the crux of it is that if you're doing a task and you can pay someone 25% of your buyback rate, which is basically how much you make in a year divided by your hours, and hours worked in a year, then you have to do it. You have to outsource that. And so I got another cell phone, and a lot of people don't know this. If you're watching, my old number that I've had since I was 15, it's now my business number. And so when I get to work, I hand that to my client excellence coordinator and say, you answer all my calls and texts today. She's got every email password. She manages my inbox as well. And I just was spending like 2 hours a day on email, just sorting through different stuff and responding here and there. It's like, John, can you send me my last year's tax return? Well, John doesn't need to be the one pulling that up. Like John needs to be, like trying to figure out a tax plan. Like how are we going to save, $100,000 on for a client? And those little micro tasks, man, add up. And not only do they add up in time, but also in bandwidth. Like, Gary Keller says in like the one thing, like, you have to focus on the one task at hand, because every time you jump from one task to another, one email to another, you're expending energy. And then when it comes back to refocusing on that first task, you're like 40% behind.
I know. Time blocking is what I try to do. I try to, all right, this hour is going to be for UX UI. This hour is going to be for Jira tickets. This hour is going to be for client follow-up. This is going to be for and I still have to put up guardrails because stuff comes up at me, and that's the only thing that I've seen to be somewhat successful. It's just tough though when you have a lot coming at you, and to have a person like that, I need I need someone like that.
Oh, she's great.
I need someone like that. I really do.
Yeah.
That's my next key hire is someone like that. That's literally my right-hand person that almost takes over my email and my phone. And all I do is she coordinates my calendar and I execute. You know what I mean?
That's where I'm at. And that's a testament to the team at Attracct. And guess what? Armin and I wrote this position in August of 2022 and we found it. And it was a position that like,
what'd you label it? What was the name of it?
Client Excellence Coordinator.
Client Excellence.
But I found her through Jacob, our manager, who I was talking earlier, who we built like he runs the company. I mean, he's just like our guy. And Kimber, who is our Client Excellence Coordinator, worked with him at a previous company. And so all of my hires up to this point have been personal connections because it's just so competitive out there, especially in the accounting market. Yeah. So she's been great, and I tell her every day, like, and
we got to get people to buy in the vision.
100%.
I think the people that reach out to us, they know what we're doing with Falaya, and they see it, right? Like the guy that's about to come on board when we announce it later this month. He just sees the vision. He's been in the real estate space. He knows what we're doing is innovative and wants to be a part of it. Like almost wants to be a part of it. And I think that's what you got to do is you got to get the people that really want to be a part of it. Because it's almost as an entrepreneur, right? You and I know that we have to have a why. We have to be able to push ourselves forward, but we also need our team to have that.
Yes.
And so if they don't buy in, if they're not 100% buy in, when it gets tough, they're not going to respond to the last email. They're going to bounce.
Yeah.
Or they're going to, you know what I mean? And so it's like you got to almost have them bought in as well, right? And, And it's hard to do.
And it starts with the planning on the front end. I mean, our core values, number one.
I liked your core values. Say that again.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
So our core values, we've got 5 of them. Number 1 is be cool, which, isn't, it's a little slang, right? And it fits our personality as, the average age of the people that work at our firm is, low 30s, easy, maybe even, high 20s. And so be cool, but so not only cool to each other, but also cool under pressure, right? And then our second core value is extreme ownership. Like what we talked about earlier, buck stops with me. Everything that happens in this company is my fault. If my employee mouthed off to a client, well, it's my fault for not getting ahead of that, right? The third core value is integrity, which is a given, right? That's a traditional core value that we wanted to keep. The fourth one is drive. So drive not only to be motivated to do a good job, but also to see a problem and fix it and drive it to completion, right? And then the fifth is family. So Armin and I, when we started the company, we had to miss events. We couldn't go eat lunch with our kids as much as we wanted to, or we couldn't go to a Mardi Gras parade, or we couldn't go to a Valentine's Day party at my kids' preschool, and it was like, man, we're going to develop a culture where it's cool to go to that.
And, for sure. I do that. I mean, I pour that in as Jacob, like, when he's over the summer with his kid at home. I mean, I'm not harping on him, like you got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And you got to instill, it's hard as a business owner because you also need them to execute, And so it's like, you got to give that. You got to make a valiant effort to make that a priority as a business owner because it's so easy to prioritize revenue, prioritize other stuff.
Yeah.
It is that.
And it starts with the rocks too, man. Like with EOS, is your rock getting done? Okay, well then you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
No doubt. I know people who
that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I know people who base quarterly bonuses off of the rocks. Like if we set your rocks, you're getting and you meet it, you're getting a quarterly bonus. If not, well, don't be surprised when you don't get one. You know? And so to your point about systems and processes, like we're lucky in a sense that we're in the startup phase because we haven't had the opportunity to develop bad habits, right? Like I knew enough going in of what I didn't want to do. And then I sought out what I wanted, or I sought out people who were doing what I wanted to emulate. And then I just copied what they do.
Right.
Yeah. And then now they like it because I'm a resource for them. And they're like, well, John, you implemented this too. I'm beholden to my strategies. what are you seeing on your end, right? So, I mean, it's been a good ride so far, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you. I'm pumped up for you and what you got going
Likewise.
on. I mean, that's why I wanted to have you on and highlight what you're doing. And I'm super excited to, keep the conversation going, man. Any way I can support you, let me know. We'd be happy to help out, route people to you.
Awesome.
Real estate investors and stuff like that. So,
and likewise too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you guys have an awesome product, and especially knowing what I know now about real estate investing, I've got no reason to use a traditional, means of buying and selling house,
Yeah. I mean, the tools that we have with the lead flow, the offers and the task, it's definitely once people really see it, they're going to get blown away.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it, but it's some pretty amazing technology that's going to really help people streamline the process.
Mm-hmm.
So we're excited, man.
For sure. Love that.
John, thanks for your time, man. I know we went over a little bit, but, it was a blast talking to you, man. We look forward to seeing what all you do.
Likewise, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time on the Falaya Focus Podcast. Hey, guys. I wanted to take a second and say thank you for watching the Falaya Focus Podcast. At Falaya, we are reimagining the way real estate is bought and sold. So we need all the love and support we can get to grow our movement. Please tell all your friends and family about all the great things that we have going on here at Falaya. Please like, share, and subscribe to all of our content, and we'll see you next time on the Falaya Focus Podcast.